dispatching to this is uploaded. So we know that we have an EX stage that has been already been discussed, and the purpose of the EX stage is to perform the operation and for a load or a store instruction. Essentially, these operations are going to be computation of effective address. Now the question is, can EX stage complete the operation in one cycle? So out of the 5 cycles, you take one cycle for performing the fetch and one for decoding, and then this is the stage where you actually perform the operation, and then the rest is about storing the result. So the result can be in memory or the result can be in the register. So can EX stage complete the operation in one cycle? So normally it is possible, but that depends on how complex is the operation. So as far as an integer operation is concerned, if the operand is an integer, then we can complete the operation in one cycle only in the EX stage. That is what we have seen. Now, when you go for a floating point operation, whatever be the floating point, let us say it can be add or divide or an integer multiplication, floating point operation or an integer division operation. So any multiplication or division operation, whether it is integer operation or floating point, at the same time, there is a floating point add or sub that is also been given. So floating point, so the integer adding and subtraction, that will simply happen in one cycle, because you have learned about half adders, full adders, and with that we can do the whole operation in one cycle. But floating point adding and subtraction will take more cycles. So how do you handle that? And in an instruction, you can have multiplication, division, integer operation, floating point operation. So is it now? We cannot assume that everything will be opened in just one cycle. So we have a dedicated hardware units that are available on the processor to perform these operations what we have mentioned now. So this is how a normal pipeline, whatever you have seen, the normal pipeline is IF, ID, EX, and MEM and write back. Now we are going to add some specialized functional units. One is known as for integer or floating point multiplication, then floating point adding unit, and then floating point or integer division unit. So the integer adding or subtraction will go through the EX stage. So for any load or a store, computation of effective address happen in the EX stage. If it is a floating point add or subtraction, that will happen through this unit. If any kind of multiplication, let's say it's an integer or floating point, then you have to carry through that. Any kind of division, there's a separate unit like that. So if I try to expand, you can see that after the decode stage, then there is a branching depending on the opcode, depending on the operation. The decode unit will check what is the operation to be done, and accordingly, either I'll forward it to the EX unit or I'll be forwarding to the floating point integer and the floating point adding unit. And then there is a floating point division unit also, and they all will converge at the end. So the IF, ID, MEM, and write back, these operations are carried out irrespective of what is a functional unit in which the execution happens. But the actual execution can be in one of these 4. And for modern processors, rather than this 4, it can be even more, depending on what are the kind of extra operations that they perform. Rather than multiplication, sometimes square root is okay, sometimes finding minimum is okay, comparison unit is okay. Like the different functional unit is possible. Now, one thing that we have to understand is every function. So here now the delay is not same. If you look for the integer unit, this is basically known as the integer unit. There the delay is 1. That means if an operand enters here, it will exit after 1 cycle. So only 1 cycle, that is the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. At the end of the 5th clock cycle, you will get the result to be returned into the register. Now, when it comes to a multiplication operation is carried out in 7 stages. So it takes basically 7 cycles here. And this is pipeline. That means some processing would be done in a unit called M1. There is a pipeline register here, and then it passes to M2. So internally, they are pipelined with the pipeline latches in between. And we give the name of the pipeline as ID/M1. That is a pipeline register here. And then we have M1/M2. That is a pipeline register here. The same naming convention. So pipeline registers would be given the name A/B, where A is the unit to the left of it and B is the unit to the right of it. But it takes 7 cycles for the result to be available here. Since it is pipelined, I can give another. Let us say I have to multiply A and B together. Okay. Now, once if you can, suppose if you are going to multiply A and B together, let's say I want to multiply now D and C together, D for Delhi. So I have to perform multiplication. So A and B, I will read from this ID stage and I put them. A and B will be here. They will move on through this M1, M2 and etc. At the end, I will get the product after the end of 7 clock cycles. So clock cycle 1 fetching, 2 decoding. Then at the 9 only, I will be completing multiplication. 10 and 11, I will write back. But since it is pipelined, at the end of the 3rd clock cycle, M1 is free. Some partial producting operation that you are going to do in A star B, and then it goes to M2. When the initial operation that is being carried out in M1, it goes to M2, then essentially I can feed the new set of operands. That means even though they are taking 7 cycles as the latency, at every new cycle, I can add a new set of operands, provided the operands are ready. But let us say if there is A star B is one operand and next multiplication is B star C, then I have to wait for, so let me call it as D equal to A star B, and the next operation is E equal to D star C. So in that case, I have to wait for this D to be generated. That will be available only at this point. So, but if the operands are readily available, then I can actually start in every clock cycle. Okay, so that is what is known as the initiation interval. So initiation interval means for an FP add, every cycle I can start a new operation. So your multiplication unit, your adding unit, they are internally pipelined. Similarly, it's like a 4-stage for adding operation, and adding is not integer adding, it is floating point adding operation. But your division unit will take 24 clock cycles and it is unpipelined. Looking at the logic of the division, it is very difficult to cut down into smaller equal chunks unit. So this division unit is basically a box to which you give an operand. Let us say A and B is given. You get A divided by B at the end of 24 clock cycles. So we have to understand 2 parameters here. That's why the division's latency is 24 and initiation interval is 25. So division unit, I can give the data only at this 25th clock cycle. So I request you to go through the textbook in order to get how the working of this each one. So we are going to define 2 terms. One is known as the latency and the other one is known as the initiation or a repeat interval. Latency of a unit is defined as the number of intervening cycles between an instruction that produces a result and an instruction that uses the result. So if I am going to produce a result and that is to be used by someone else, how much time I have to wait? So for integer ALU operation, if one instruction, let us say one add instruction is going to produce something to R1, and next add instruction is going to use that R1. So there is a raw dependency. Since we have already operand forwarding, if the latency of integer ALU is called as 0, that means I should not wait. The number of intervening cycles, I should not put up any extra delay. As long as the very next instruction is going to be there, I can use it. That means 2 adds need not be having any extra shift. Normally there is a shift. Suppose if this starts at clock cycle number 1, the second add obviously will start at clock cycle number 2 because of the inherent delay in pipeline. Apart from that basic 1 cycle, there is no extra delay that is being required. That is what is known as the latency of an integer operation. Now coming to data memory, you know that if there is a load followed by an add operation where there is a data dependency between them, then there is a latency of 1. So I have to wait that there should be extra 1 cycle between an instruction that produces result, that is my load instruction which will produce the result, and an instruction that is going to use the result. That's why it's called 1. But what is the initiation interval? Initiation interval means the number of cycles that must elapse between issuing 2 operations of a given type. So if I wanted to perform one more load operation, then I can do it in the very subsequent cycle. So there should be only 1 cycle gap. This is intervening cycles between instructions, and this is going to be the number of cycles that might elapse. That's a clock cycle time. For a floating point add, you know that suppose if there is an F add, floating point add between some registers, and then I have to again use the result of that. Let's say I'm going to get the result in R2, and I'm going to use the operand in, this is coming as the source operand. So this will produce the result at the end of A4. So even with operand forwarding, the subsequent one has to wait for a minimum of 3 cycles if I wanted to use the result. But I can start a new pair of floating point adding as long as the operand is available. My unit A1, A2, A3 are free. But if you wanted to use the result of A4, then there should be operand forwarding from the back of A4 to the input of A1. Similarly, even though multiplication is a 7 stage, the latency is considered as 6 because inherently there is a 1 cycle delay that happens. But I have to wait for another 6 more cycles in order to get that. When it comes to the division unit, the initiation interval is defined as 25 and the latency is 24. Latency means between, even if suppose if I have a division operation of R1, R2, R3, and another division operation of, let's say, R4, R5, R6, no dependency between them, but still I have to wait for 24 cycles because of a structural hazard. My division unit is not available. So in this way, you have we are going to stretch our existing pipeline, what we have learned for a 5-stage pipeline, into a pipeline that can support multi-cycle operations or complex operations like integer and then floating point. Now the interesting thing is some instruction will get complete in 5 clock cycles. Those who take this path, the upper path, they will complete in 5 clock cycles. This will complete in 11 clock cycles. This will complete in 8 clock cycles, and this will complete in 28 clock cycles. So even though I have a formal in-order mechanism by which instructions are issued, there is no guarantee by what time they are going to complete. Let me know if there is any query up to this point. Is the working clear, or the concept of latency and the initiation interval, that is clear to you?
Sir, how do we know that multiplication takes 7 cycles, not more or less in cycles?
How do we
know that multiplication takes 7 cycles only, not more or less than 7?
Okay, so multiplication, there is a unit that you have to design which consists of taking the multiplicand and multiplier, and then we may have to perform. There are multiplication circuits. The complexity of the multiplication circuit, when it compares to then adding circuit, then it's very complex. It will take multiple cycles to give you the result. So you may have to do a very low coding and synthesize and then do things in hardware. When you give input, it takes longer time. The delay of the circuit is more. Now what I have to do, I have to chunk it, I have to cut down into smaller components. Then only I can pipeline it. So division, I am not able to cut down into smaller components. It's like one black box, you give some input, it takes multiple cycles because the combinational delay path of the circuit is larger. So it's basically the content of the circuit, how many gates are there, the wire delay and the gate delay, and you have tools which will tell you how much delay it will take. Let's say it will taking 500 nanoseconds, 200 nanoseconds. So depending on the clock, you will come to know how many such clock cycles are required. So these numbers are extracted from hardware synthesis of these circuits.
Yes, sir, got it.
Anyone else, any other doubt?
Sir, why the initiation interval of floating point divide is 25, means one more greater than the latency?
Okay, so for the case of the initiation interval means how much a cycle, clock cycle should elapse between issuing two operations of a given type. So my division unit, ultimately I have to press the result out into it. It will take for 24 cycles to complete the operation, and then the result has to go out. So this is a black box. The result has to go out, and then only it will be able to accept it. So that is why there is an extra delay, whereas all others are pipelined unit. Here, since it is a black box unit, I think there is some initialization also required for the division unit in order to take up the new set of inputs. Whereas in all other cases, since they are not doing the complete operation, they are only doing partial operation with respect to that. And this partial results are carried out from M1 to M2 and then M2 process further. So you are becoming closer to the result. Such a kind of facility is not there in division. It's like a one macro complex unit. In order to reinitialize the division unit, next set of operation. You can further read on the textbook also. I'll give the reference at the end of the page to know like what is the difference in 24 and 25. Let me know any other query. Anyone else? Any query in this portion? Okay. So now let me move to the next one. Consider the instruction that is been given. That is multiplication. So here this D stands for double. I'm operating on double data. Sometimes we call it as data also. So there is a multiplication instruction. So you know that it's IF, ID, M1, M2, etc. up to M7, then mem and write back. And then there is an add instruction. That is what is been given. You assume there is no data dependency between them. And then there is a loading a value and then storing a value. So load and store will complete in 5 clock cycles. So this D stands for double precision numbers. Okay. Now, tell me, what are the issues that we'll have? We have learned, so you can know that no, all of them are, so this is clock cycle number 1, 2, 3 like that. I am going to fetch one instruction only in the very new clock cycles. Now, what are the challenges that you face? You can unmute and tell what all things as a computer architect I should understand in order to make sure that things are in line. Or what are the unexpected issues that will come because the instructions are now not completing in the order in which they started. So can I know what is there in your mind if someone wanted to respond? What are the challenges or what are the additional circuitry that you need, additional mechanism that you need in order to handle this?
The write back of the first multiplication is happening at the last, despite it was the first instruction. So if it is writing on some register which the further instruction is using, then that won't be that won't happen.
Can you repeat it so once again?
The first instruction, which is the multiplication instruction, the write back of it happens at the last, despite it being the first instruction. So if it writes on some register, say R1, and that R1 is used by either add, load, or store, then that then we won't have that data for that to use.
Yeah. So the hazard management, even though it's a raw hazard, with operand forwarding also sometimes we cannot handle. The hazard management will become slightly complex. That I agree. Then, any other point?
Sir, my question is, can W means right after write hazard happen here? Because since it's completing later.
Yes, that's obviously possible. You just try to see your load instruction is going to write into R1. Let me take the instruction that has been given. I am going to have a multiplication instruction which is going to write into R1. Okay. And then I am going to have a load instruction, the third instruction that is going to load a value into R1. Okay. And then you imagine that there is some instruction which is going to use a value of R1 later. Okay. Now this R1 will happen only at this clock cycle, whereas the loads R1 happen here. So this becomes a write after write hazard. A later instruction happen to get your wow hazard because the first instruction is going to stun later. There is no stalling, all are working. This is what I told you. Have the possibility of your war and wow hazards can happen if all the instructions are not taking uniform. So now all instructions are not going to take 5 cycles. Some will take more than 5. So you will have raw hazard, war hazard, and wow hazard. All three would be there. We have to address that. Any other issue?
Two instructions might do the same hardware at the same time.
Two instruction?
Might it try to use the same hardware at the same point of time?
What hardware? You're coming to the point. The thinking is correct. What hardware?
Sir, a particular component.
Tell me an example of the hardware. What is going to be used in any of these ways? Some resource.
Memory.
You are telling like two instruction can come to memory together. Yes, possible. One store is waiting and some other store is coming directly. One store is waiting for an operand to be ready. Let's say you can have the same scenario. You are going to perform a multiplication operation, and let us say immediately after that you have a store. So the result of the multiplication has to be stored somewhere. So since multiplication is delayed, I will get the value of multiplication only at this point. So only here the store can access things. So store will also get delayed, even though stories happen before. Now what happens? There may be some other store like genuine like this, and this mem can come with the mem of the store together if you properly align the instruction. A normal store whose operand is available will come exactly in that same vertical timeline. So the mem stage of two instruction can come together. It can also happen in the WB stage also. There can be a case where two instructions reach back W stage together. One may be an add instruction, the other one may be a load instruction, or it can be multiple add instruction. One add was delayed because its previous operand was not ready. So there exists a lot of such kind of challenges. How do you handle that? So now onwards, we are now entering into the real pipeline that is there in our cell phones, laptops, and all. The other one, what we learned was simple, where we oversimplified things by telling that everything will be completed in 5 clock cycle, and this is going to be the reality. So what are the issues in longer latency pipeline? Since divide unit is not pipelined, it is going to create a structural hazard. It's very simple. Let us say you have two division operations, and R1, R2, and R3. And another division operation on R4, R5, and R6. So since I have only one division unit and both operands are available, R5 and R6 are available, but the division unit is not available. Both of them cannot use. So one has to wait. That's called structural hazard. The unit is not free. Two instructions try to make use of the unit exactly at the same time. Now for convenience, let us use the convention R1, R2 for noting integer registers, and F1, F2 for representing floating point registers. You have already learned about floating point representation. The IEEE floating point representation, where the entire 32-bit is divided into 23 plus 8 exponent, and floating point is there, Mandisa and all. So the 32-bit is simply not the magnitude of it. You have a sign component, you have an excess 127, the exponent component, and then you have a Mandisa component after standardization. So you are already familiar with how floating point numbers are represented. Since divide unit is not pipelined, you will get a structural hazard. That is point number 1. Now instructions have varying runtime. So it is possible that more than one instruction may reach the write back stage, and there may not be any instruction that reach a write back stage at a given point. So sometimes there may not be any instruction which will reach the write back stage, and sometimes there can be more instruction that will reach to the writing. So how do you manage that? One is you have to delay, or else you need to have multiple write ports. One is going to write into R1. So if you write the instruction, when you look at, let's say at clock cycle number 14, one instruction is in write back. It started with your IF there, and someone else started IF late. That also is using the write back together. So that means two register write exactly at the same point. So instructions are varying runtime. So more registers I need to write per cycle. Wow hazard, as discussed before, it is possible because an instruction that is starting late can complete early. So it may write into a value which should not have happened. And then out of order completion can sometimes lead to imprecise exception. So you can get error. Let's say you are going for a division operation, division by 0. Division by 0 is not defined, so that will lead to an exception or an error which the operating system has to handle. Let us say the first instruction is going to be division. The subsequent one was adding. So division may take 28 cycles. In between there was an issue. And then whenever the error happens, you have to handle it using a mechanism known as exception service handling, ESR. So the subsequent instruction, let's say it might have completed the operation, but a previous instruction is creating an error. So when there is an error happening, I have to flush out all instruction that is after the error. I have to handle this error first, and then only I can continue. What if a later instruction is going to complete accordingly? Now, what if there is a division operation and followed by there is a branch instruction which is dependent on the division? So I might have run so many instructions after the branch, but the branch may not have taken place. So that all lead to scenarios where it is very difficult for us to revert back. So out of order completion can lead to scenarios where an instruction that is happening after the troublemaking instruction, like an exception or an interrupt, subsequent instructions should not have completed or should not have updated their value, should not have updated the registers or memory. But already if it is done, it is very difficult to revoke back. Let us say an instruction is going to write into a register R1. Now later you tell that that instruction was not supposed to execute because an instruction prior to that encountered with an error and the operating system decided that it will restart. So you have to undo activities. But once you update the register, let's say the value was 10, now I update to 15, there is no way going back. And stalled for row hazard should be more. Can you closely look into it? Wherever this instruction that is been given, this F indicate floating point registers. It's a 32-bit floating point registers, and R indicates integer registers. Okay, so floating point registers would be representing value in IEEE floating point format that you have already learned. 1 bit for sine, then another 8 bit for Mantissa, and remaining 1 bit, remaining 23 bit for Mantissa and 8 bit for exponent, like that. So here I use R2 for computation. So the address portion I am using an integer register because adding the addresses cannot be floating point number. So 0 plus R2 is my address. I load the value. So whatever is available in the memory, that's a floating point number. So now my F4 has a floating point value, but R2 is having an integer value. Now see the dependency there. So the dependency what you are going to see here is the dependency between them. You can see that this one is having an F4. This is an F4. And this also is an F4. So there is a row hazard. So only after your load complete, then only my multiplication unit can start. So there is operand forwarding. That means your multiplication M1 can start only after the load operation is over. That's why you have a stall here. Your M1 should happen only after the mem stage. So there is an operand forwarding from the mem stage to M1. And only at M7 the result is available. Now see, the result is to be returned to F0. There is another floating point register F6. They are going to multiply them together. Whatever is the result of the multiplication instruction, that will come as a source operand for the next adding. So there is a dependency between the multiplication and adding. So that means your A1 can start only after M. So from M7 there is an operand forwarding to A1. And now whatever is the result that you got, that I have to store. So the result will be available only at this point. And then you have to store. And then when you vertically look, your stores mem cannot come here. Two mems cannot come together. So I have to stall at this point. And then from the mem stage output, I'm going to input to the mem stage of the store instruction. So you see, now even though there is operand forwarding, because of this, you are getting a lot of stalls. This is the way how it has to be done. So these are kind of issues that you see here. Let me know if there is any query here.
Sir, for the add F2, F0 and F8, in the fourth stage, why do we have a stall for the instruction decode?
Okay, so this is what I told on the last day. Your multiplication, the instruction is getting stalled. That means it cannot go to the EX stage. EX basically means M1 stage. That means I will continue in the ID stage for one. So this stall means I am continuing in the ID stage for one more cycle. So since the multiplication is already in the ID stage, nothing forwarded, my add cannot start decode because the multiplication is already in the ID. So vertically, if you look, no two stages should be similar. So this stall is nothing but I continue in the ID stage for one more cycle. Is the doubt clear?
Yes, thank you.
Any other query?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, does this mean that the adds instruction decode will continue for the cycles from 5 to 11?
Yes. They are not decoding anything. They are holding the value. So whatever is the output pipeline register of decode, that value it will retain for another 4 more cycles. Means it cannot go to the EX stage. So it will continue. This is like a queue. Someone is there in the EX stage, so I will wait in the ID stage.
Yes, sir. Got it. Thank you.
Any other query? Any query, please let me know so that I can go to the next slide. Okay, let me go to the next slide. So issues in longer latency pipelines. So one issue that I wanted to rectify here is single write port. So some instructions are there, but essentially all of them are going to reach the write back at clock cycle number 11. Some possible combination can give you this, but I have only single write ports. So how do you do that? Serialized completion versus. So one mechanism is you ask them to wait. These two has to wait. Then when they wait, let's say it is being shifted to 12th clock cycle and the other one is shifted to 13th clock cycle, there may be some conflict in the 12th clock cycle. It may clash with someone else. So serializing is one option, or else I should provide multiple write ports. Then how to do? What if, even if you provide multiple write port, that means I am, suppose if this write back happens to R1, if this is happening to R2, this is happening to R3, and if this is your register file, if there are 3 write ports, I can update R1, R2 and R3 together. What if this write and this write is to the same operand? Then it becomes a problem. So we have to come up with solutions that can handle this. So single write port is an issue. One way is to serialize completion, the other way is to use multiple write ports. Or we know that if I issue at ID stage, or if I issue means I am pushing the operand into the functional unit, I know that operands are ready, so it will complete and then there's a mem stage. So if I issue at 6, so issue means putting into the functional unit, I know that this will reach at the write back stage at clock cycle number 11 by forward looking calculation. 4 cycle of adding, and then 1 cycle for mem, and then 1 cycle for write back. So you can actually resolve write port conflict in the ID stage itself, and you can stall the issue by 1 cycle. If I know, if I could have issued at 6, it will reach at 11. So the control unit already know which are already issued in the past, and by what time they will reach write back. Accordingly, I can delay it. Rather than you making them wait here, I can delay them here also. So if you delay the write back of one unit, that means this will trickle back. If I try to take a logic such that by the time I reach to write back stage, I come to know someone else is also writing. So I continue in mem stage for one more cycle. If I am waiting in mem stage for one more cycle, the effect will trickle back. That means the result of A4 cannot be pushed to mem. Someone else is sitting there. By this time, M7 might have completed. That result cannot come to mem. So it is always better to try to resolve such kind of issue at the ID stage, such that I can stop fetching, than asking the functional unit to produce the result and then hold it for some more time. Other thing is you can stall either of the instruction on a priority basis, let's say at the mem or the write back stage. That's exactly what I told. Serializing means I will stall one of them to carry out the operation later, or it has its own say on the penalty of it. And stalling at the mem stage will force. So if I stall someone at the mem stage, then someone else has to be stalled at the EX stage, at the M7 or A4 stages. EX will come for the integer pipeline, M7 for the multiplicand units last stage, and A4 like that. So it will trickle back. Still more issues. We have wow hazard at register F2. See, let's see. Here there is a load instruction which is writing into F2. Here there is an add instruction that is going to writing into F2. So there is a wow hazard at register F2. So what happens here? You are going to write at this point, but whereas a load is going to write at 10. So how do you handle this? Now there may be some other instruction which is going to use a value of F2. Let's say add of F2. As per program order, this is the F2 what I want. Let's say this is going to read F2 at clock cycle number 12. But what happens? It will read this value because F2, first it is written by the load instruction. This happens at clock cycle number 10. At clock cycle number 11, add instruction will update F2. So whoever is now reading F2 after clock cycle number 11, it will see the result what add has done. So as per program order, this is the order. That is what I want, but I may read in the wrong value. So that will result to wow hazard. So one way that you can do is delay the issue. The issue means a movement from ID to EX, which functional unit has to start, of a load instruction until add enters a mem stage. So I can actually delay this load. If this kind of a scenario comes, I can actually delay it until the add enters the mem stage. Or they keep the result of add and give it to the needed instruction. So add, in that case, what happens? Add should not write into this because already someone has written it. Add should not update register. Rather, if someone else is waiting for that value, give it to them directly. So some instruction in between add and load may be trying to use the value of F2. Or else we should not use this because simply overwriting F2. So there may be some instruction in between your add and load which essentially want F2 as the source operand. So add, the moment add comes to know, I have written, if I'm going to write to WB, then it is going to create a wow hazard. So add will not update WB, rather add will forward the result to only that instruction which is waiting for it. So that load can continue with write B and everybody after load will read the updated value. These are some of the mechanism in which you solve. So hence only load is going to write into this F2 mechanism. So how are you going to handle issues in longer pipeline? Few more points. First of all, you need to check whether there is a structural hazard in division operation and whether the number of write ports are sufficient. And how do you check row hazard at the ID stage? So when an instruction is about to issue, if the source of an instruction in the ID stage is FI, let's say FI is the name of a register. So that means I'm going to talk about an instruction that has come to, let's say F2, F1 and F0. This is my source operand. Now I need to know whether someone else is writing to F1 which are already issued prior to me. So if the source of an instruction is FI and FI should be there as the name of the destination of instruction in any of the ID A1, A1, A2, A2, A3, ID M1, like the M1, M2, if any of these pipeline registers hold the destination register as FI and currently, so I have one instruction whose source is FI. I need to check any other previously issued instruction has FI as the destination. When I had only an EX unit, it was very easy to check. But now I have to check so many possibilities. And that makes the control unit design a little complex to form. So checking for row hazard, that is one mechanism. And then you have to check for the wow hazard. How do you know if there is a wow hazard? Whatever operation I have. So I am going to have an operation, let us say F add, and I'm going to write into this register F2, F3. So I'm going to write into F1. So if any instruction in A1 to A4 or M1 to M7 has the same destination as the instruction in the ID, and the time at which they reach WB is same, then I may have to delay bar. So if the new instruction that has come to ID happened to reach the write back stage earlier than the instructions, so the new one may be going through this. The others might have gone through this. So this will reach WB quickly. So I have to check whether there is a possibility of a wow and a war hazard. So we have to perform now. Operand forwarding has to be done. So from the output of EX, I need to, from the output of EX mem register, there should be operand forwarding from A4 mem, from M7 mem, and then from mem write back. In all these places, there should be operand forwarding back to the front of EX, to M1, to M2, and to divide. So here this new mem also. So there is a lot of the operand forwarding now becomes little rather complex scenario. Okay, so today I wanted to cover up only just to give an introduction of how these multi-cycle operations work. I request you to go through the textbook thoroughly, and reading textbook is important if at all you wanted to understand the concept. So it is also taken from appendix C5, and the video link for this is been given. So if there is any question, we have another 5 more minutes, I can address your queries. Please let me know if at all there are any queries. So if there is no specific query, let us stop the class and we'll meet on Friday.